Heidi Rader here in the Alaska Garden. I'm an associate professor of extension with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and I'm going to talk all about growing vegetables, flowers, and berries productively and sustainably in Alaska. Researchers have found that blueberries are the most important wild berry in the boreal ecoregion or interior Alaska. I know they're important to me. Every year in late July, I feel like I can hardly breathe until I have a few gallons of blueberries in the freezer, but I'm not content until I have about 10 gallons. In Alaska, we're lucky to have plentiful blueberries on public lands, but there are a number of threats to wild berries, including climate change, invasive species, changes in land ownership, and development, to name a few. Fire suppression may also allow natural succession to take over a berry patch. Although wild berries do thrive more or less on their own, there are many reasons and ways to steward wild berry patches as a community or individuals to improve and sustain production for current and future generations. Another advantage to a private berry patch is that you can actively manage it to improve production. There are many reasons an individual or community may want to actively steward a berry patch and many ways to do so. You can even propagate and cultivate bog blueberries on a farm. However, stewarding an existing berry patch may be easier. More than 10 years ago, when I built a cabin in Goldstream Valley, I discovered the many joys and opportunities of having blueberries in my backyard. I could pick berries while my baby napped inside the house in earshot. I could pick if I just had an hour in the evening, and I didn't have to worry about rushing to the berries before they were all picked. Also, my land was leveled at one point, and so it's easy walking compared with tussocks or downed trees in old burn areas. Communities may want to protect and improve production of nearby berry patches for communal use as well. For example, having an easily accessible location for elders to pick could be a goal. Stewarding locations with various elevations and aspects would help ensure consistent harvests across years. In this video, I'll focus on bog blueberries, or more precisely, Vaccinium uliginosum, because it's one of the most important berry crops in interior Alaska. Some of these ideas can be applied to other berry types, and when I say blueberry, I mainly am referring to lowbush or bog blueberries, the most common species in Alaska. So what can you do to steward a wild berry patch? First, the land may need protection. The Blueberry Preserve in Goldstream Valley exemplifies how a community coalesced to protect a popular and productive blueberry spot. On private land, you can protect your berries by choosing not to build or landscape over them. Trust me, it's a lot easier to maintain a blueberry patch than a lawn, and a lot yummier too. Invasive species are another looming threat to blueberries and berries in general. Although there are many invasive species to weed and control, bird vetch is particularly onerous because it can invade undisturbed areas, unlike many invasive species that only thrive in disturbed areas. Go to alaskainvasivesreporter.org to identify an insect, weed, or disease. In general, the best way to control invasive species is to pull or mow it. You can also cover it with a tarp or use herbicides. This is another way to kill invasive species, is by covering it with a tarp for a few years and killing the invasive species that way. So it works well if you have a patch in a particular area. It's not going to work as well if the vetch is mixed in with your blueberries or other wild berries. Right up there with invasive species as a threat to wild berries is climate change, although there may also be opportunities. Dr. Krista Mulder and others are investigating threats and opportunities for different wild berries from climate change with the Alaska Berry Futures Project. The impact of climate change on blueberries and 5 other berries is being described in detail, and a species vulnerability index to climate change is also being developed. We can all protect wild berries by using leave no trace principles. For example, picking up all of our trash and disposing it properly, not four-wheeling on top of the berries, and pooping in holes 6 to 8 inches deep, and carrying out our toilet paper or using leaves instead. Sustaining wild berry patches is one goal for stewardship. Another goal may be to improve production with cultivation techniques that could range from light to intensive cultivation. Although not seen much in Alaska, in Maine, wild blueberries are intensively cultivated. Their blueberries are a different species than in Alaska, but we can still learn from their techniques. Here are some ways to lightly cultivate wild blueberries. Number 1, selectively clear brush that threatens to outcompete blueberries, like trees, shrubs, willows, alders, birch trees, and spruce trees, for example. Number 2, control invasive species. Number 3, prune half of your bushes each year when they're dormant in late fall after killing frost and the leaves have dropped, or in early spring before the leaves have emerged. I prune with hedge shears, which improved production and ease of picking. On a large scale, berries can be mowed. Burning is another way that berry fields have been pruned. Number 4, propagate and plant productive or tasty berry bushes in a non-cleared setting. Number 5, raise bees to improve pollination and fruit set. These are the ways that offer low-hanging fruit, pun intended. Although we don't have well-researched guidelines on cultivating lowbush blueberries in Alaska, you can use other blueberry production guides like one called Improving Your Wild Blueberry Yields, published by Maine Cooperative Extension, as a general guide. Just keep in mind that you're dealing with a different species, a different climate, and a different growing season. In Maine, they have seen up to 10,000 pounds of blueberries produced per acre. It makes me wonder how many pounds of lowbush blueberries we could produce on an acre. More intensive cultivation methods may include the following. Number 1, selecting wild berry plants with large and productive berry bushes and planting blueberry bushes into a cleared garden or farm setting. Number 2, fertilizing. Number 3, irrigating. Number 4, a full pruning regime. Number 5, controlling weeds by pulling or with herbicides. Number 6, controlling pests and diseases. Sustaining and lightly cultivating an existing blueberry patch may be the easiest route, but you can also establish a wild berry patch if needed. Don't bother trying to grow non-native blueberries in interior Alaska. Dr. Pat Holloway and local master gardeners already have tried without success. They consistently found that although the plants do grow, only the part of the plant below snow levels survive and produce berries, and not many at that. Papa Munier and Charlie Knight proved that bog blueberries could be propagated and cultivated. You can propagate blueberry plants from seed or cuttings. You'll want to choose plants with large and plentiful berries. Papa's and Charlie's propagation method was to take a cutting, dip it in a plant rooting hormone, put it in a misting chamber, let it go dormant, then overwinter them, and start it in the greenhouse in the spring and harden them off before planting. They experienced a fair bit of loss along the way. Papa and Charlie said many people have tried to transplant large, productive blueberry plants without success, partly because of the extensive mycorrhizal association. Large plants have been killed in the transplant process. However, they did find the easiest way to propagate blueberries was by taking cuttings from the perimeter of the plant that had already started to form roots and then taking cuttings from those. Remember, it's illegal to dig up wild blueberry plants or other wild plants on public lands without a permit or on private lands without permission. You can find more detail on wild berry management and propagation in the description of this video, or you can review other videos on propagation methods online. Now let's talk about the do's and don'ts of harvesting berries, including the contentious subject of the dreadfully destructive or wonderfully useful rake, depending on how you look at it. I myself do not use a rake because I prefer to pick with my hands. I've also heard you can end up with a ton of leaves and bugs in your bucket as well. I know that gently plucking the berries with my fingers can result in squished berries, and so I think if you use a rake, you might end up with a lot of blueberry mush. To be honest, I think I just enjoy picking the berries as well. I asked Dr. Pat Holloway, Professor Emeritus of Horticulture at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, what her thoughts were on the rake. Among other things, she is an expert on berries. In an email, she responded, "Blueberry rakes can cause an enormous amount of damage if people are in a hurry to fill their buckets. If you are going to use the rake," she admonishes, "very slowly comb the bush from the bottom up, and when you encounter resistance, don't rip the rake through the plant. Use your hands to push through the foliage." She said that a rake with flexible wire loops is better than one with wooden tines, and that lingonberries are better suited to raking since they're firmer. If you're not careful, and probably even if you are, you're going to harvest a great deal of leaves, which will over time result in a less vigorous plant. More imminently, you may be stripping off flower buds that would have turned into next year's berries, according to Holloway. Buds begin forming as early as late June. The least of your concerns should be leaving berries on any particular plant for the birds, the bears, and the bees. I do this anyways because I am a rambling picker and always looking for bigger berries. But I'm not really doing the plant or wildlife a favor. They can just as easily eat berries from the next plant. Enjoy your blueberries however you come by them, and consider how you can play a role in stewarding your own or community wild berry patch.